All right, everyone. It's 10:45 already. What are we gonna do here?
Oh boy!
I think we ran over a bit.
A little bit.
We took quite a while with those kobolds. Goodness.
Yeah, I'm like okay. Self-criticism. The prestige classes definitely add time to combat rounds because you just have a lot more options, right?
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the Chaos Caster, because you have so many roles that you have to keep track of that it becomes a lot, right? So slowing down combat is kind of I accept that is a downside.
I think my guy's been perfectly speedy, actually.
I think it's more so I don't think it's as bad. Even with the combination of the two, it's just knowing what I can and can't do. You know what I mean? I think the first session,
the learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but right, that's with anything though. Is you're trying to learn the new class, and it's okay, well, can I mix these or
Mm-hmm.
that's yeah.
So I think that's really where it is.
How much longer do you think we'll be running?
Well, that's the big question. Because right now I'm looking at it and I'm like, this looks if I were to give a good place to stop, now would be it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of me feels like it may be best to if everyone's down for it, schedule a second game. Or we can call it here and just have this be the adventure. You've not solved all the problems of the adventure, but it was a good setup. It gave an opportunity for different people to show off different things. And we could call it here, and then right now we can move into a Q&A about how things felt and kind of do that. It depends on whether or not you all would like to continue the adventure or not, really. It would have to be sometime this month. Next month, my Wednesdays start going up, but we can do it if you would like. Part of me feels like to hedge our bets, it would be best to just act like this was the campaign, and we test it, and we looked at it, and it was good. We go through Q&A, and we do everything like that. And then if after today or something like that, we feel like we want to pick it back up, we can. Does that sound fair to everybody?
Sounds reasonable to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I still have, we have everyone here that just played with the classes that we can talk about. I want to take advantage of that. And we'll just do that for about 10 minutes or so. And then, call it a night tonight. And move forward from there. Because I've even got to test out some of the stuff on the back end as the DM. So I want to talk about that too. And we can just kind of chat about it.
Cool.
I'll open up with just some thoughts. My initial thoughts is as a writer of Dungeons and Dragons adventures, right? The prestige classes, the elements that are inside of the duct tape box, spark a lot of ideas for world building.
Yeah. Okay.
I think because for what has happened with the Blood Mages Guild, for example, that history there, where each of the different classes feel like there are cultures or ideas to be explored behind each. Because there's something your characters went out to find to get better at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that element of it, I didn't expect it until I started writing it, is something that caught me off guard, and I actually enjoyed playing with those elements in building the world as a GM. I'll start with that.
I think that's a really fun little aspect to it. And I remember talking with you, Mr. Forever GM, about that in your initial design way back when, before I even knew you were doing something like this. And it was if you're going to build something that isn't strictly class, you should make it in your world. You should make it something people can explore.
Yeah,
I think that's really fun.
So our original pass of that stuff, it was all specifically tied to factions. but we kind of wanted to divorce that from it because people are going to want to take this and put it into their world. We don't want to tell them what the blood mages are. We would just want to give them those tools so that they can decide what it means to be a blood mage and what if that's an organization or if it's just a bunch of hedge wizards or what. And we kind of divorced all the factions from the idea of the prestige classes.
Yeah, because I mean, I can go even more in depth than that. Is like, so my God, I mean, what that game lasted over a year. You two, and you know that's where the idea of the prestige classes kind of came from. Is I was using them in that game, and they were factions, right? They were like actual factions that you basically had to side with them to open up that channel, right? So it's like, you know, you had an anti-mage quest objective, like a side quest. You had a chaos caster guide that you had to kind of like go through training with if you wanted to pursue that. But like the monster hunters in particular are kind of a mix of two of the prestige classes that I had in my like own specific world. And the reason for that is that they were the two factions was like one was called like the Bloody Gauntlets, and it was specifically orc hunters, and the other one were Black Knights, which were specifically dragon hunters. So I kind of took what I gave both of those and I kind of condensed them, got rid of some of the bloat, I guess, and then kind of condensed it down into like, you know, just a hunter that is like super specialized in like one particular, you know, kind of prey, right? Yeah, I mean, of course, everything has gone through a lot of revisions, but
I liked the fact that you did divorce it from the factions, because it gave me creativity as a GM. I appreciated that, to not be shoehorned into one idea of what it was, because then I could make it match my setting very easily, right? I could just change it and throw it right in, and it matched. I also like the idea that you could have a faction who has only one part of the blood mage stuff, right? Because we talked on the innocence in blood magic, right? And some schools of blood magic mages could teach the non-innocence part, and some could say, well, if you find blood but that is innocent, you can do X, Y, and Z, and there could be a split in the world.
Yeah,
like, and I like that. A lot of
really
you
fun
know,
stuff.
Yeah, it's really it's inspiring material to work with as a game master. So,
and I will say, the blood mage thematically, the mechanics and thematics of it, it's really easy to understand. Like, you know what you're doing. I do think you should probably limit the blood mage dice to a single type of dice, because I could have just picked as many D4 as I wanted, you know.
Oh, wow.
Gives you more control over the outcome if you pick a smaller die.
I would just make it your hit die, whatever your hit die is.
Yeah, that's what I would do too, actually.
And some of the abilities do use your hit dice.
Yeah. But you don't have to, like, again, it runs, right? And as we saw, you can run it. Like, I think there's a stigma about, oh, we have to make everything perfect every time and go back and change everything all the time. Like, it's, as it stands right now, it's good and playable. I think everybody could agree that. The trick is how do you want to put it in your game, right? And I think more so, if I were a DMing it, there's certain parts as a DM, there's stuff in the published player's handbook that I as a DM will make a call on and be like, actually, for this thing you do this, or for this thing you do that. And I don't think that, like what he said at the beginning, the blood mage class is very thematic, right? All the pieces line up, and how things are ruled, I think, can be up to the DM's discretion. I'm sorry, that's me talking as DM. Because I freaking love that stuff, right? Like making a call, and I've made different calls on rules for different games, just depending on who's in it and what I know they like or don't like.
That fits the group.
Yeah. For that part in particular, I would also make it who taught you the blood magic. Is it more volatile or is it more precise, right? Is it pulling from you or is it pulling from science or whatever it is? And that would decide
what research are you performing.
But there's
You know exactly what I'm
there's
thinking.
tons of like fun stuff you can do with it. So I like that. I want to give everybody a time to shine real quick. I want to zone in on the luchador. How did they feel? How did everybody feel about the luchador?
Oh, that was cool. That was very
loved
cool.
it. Loved it.
Man, fun to play
I don't
with.
think it got the ability to shine like it could have, just because of where we were. You know what I mean? But I think that if we'd been in like a forest, you know what I mean, or like another area that was a little more open, the luchador probably would have took over the majority of that fight.
I mean, you walked in, arms outstretched.
I was thinking Ric
That
Flair.
builds right into the. You captured the fantasy, you know.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah, so Luchador is one of my favorites in the book because it's so like silly and ridiculous. And really, I mean, I guess I need to thank Vetch here, Kevin, because like he's the one that in like when he's playing in my games, he wants to grapple and throw everything off a bridge. So I'm like, okay, how do we make this like how do we make a classic based around grappling that's not awful, right? Because like the grappling rules in 5e like don't work well, right? So I'm like, okay, well, grappling, I mean, wrestler, okay, let's, yeah, I mean that's where it came from.
The central concept of it is that you have a builder spender class where you grapple something and then you spend that grapple to do something cool. Because we went through a few iterations, but it didn't really. It always felt like there was something there that was like, well, this is really cool, but you're not doing any damage now, you know. So then that way, it's kind of like you take one round of damage, and you put it on the side, and then you do a round where you have all of that damage at once, and it makes it kind of bursty class.
Whenever we first about that. Does it matter? Does creature size matter at all? Is it just the initial grapple where you have to deal with creature size, or do the future moves also deal with that as well?
So it would deal with, the initial grapple, right? Because like if it's two, let's see, I believe the rule is if it's two sizes larger than you can't grapple at all, and if it's one size larger than you have disadvantage. But if you can successfully get them, from that point, it's like, you can do what. So you could go and suplex an ogre, I guess. Technically.
And that's kind of the reason it landed as a barbarian subclass instead of a fighter or a prestige class, is because you kind of need the barbarian's rage component to make it work.
There are some hacks because Goliath has powerful build. And so Goliath could technically grapple a dragon.
I mean, you can just cast Enlarge on the guy, too, so it's not off the table. But if your DM says you can't suplex a dragon, I wouldn't argue with it.
Yeah, if a DM says you can suplex a dragon, then...
I want to see that
go
dragon
for
suplexed. You better roll.
Let's actually jump to you, Ray, about the Chaos Caster. Because you did both of those. I think Chaos Caster, in the hands of not a gun mage, would be less complicated. It would have less things to choose from. However, you have such a wide variety of weapons. I was worried about that going in, but you did play it well. It still just takes time to choose what you're doing, though. How did it feel?
I think that the Chaos Caster would work better with a bard, to be honest.
With a bard?
With a bard.
Okay.
From a story standpoint, as well as from playing the character, it lends itself more to that wily aspect of it. Because when I was looking through the spells, I'm not gonna lie, I got caught up on the Chaos Caster chart. I got caught up on that. I was hoping I got a burst. But a lot of the other ones after that, they're small little things. The once in the morning thing that you have your rolls for. I don't know if the version I downloaded is the right one or not. Some of the ones that roll a D2. Is there a D2?
It's a coin.
Well,
it's for the coin. Oh, okay. Gotcha. I was just like, did I miss something?
There is a D2.
or just a D4 divided by 2. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah, though, like a lot of those are just like quick 1-2 things. Like your Whim of Fate is a quick, you know what I mean? It's a quick thing. You can use it whenever, but you may trigger the burst. It's a one and done. If you want to use it, you can. You know what I mean? Type situation. The Shrug Off the Bad, where that all has to do with your, if you even have a burst, you know, from level 7. So it's really, I don't think that is what complicated a lot of the rolls. A lot of my rolls were more so on the gun mage side.
Yeah,
is where a lot of those extra dice came in.
I think gun mage is probably the most complicated one. It was definitely the hardest one that I had when trying to design it, because trying to be like, okay, well, you know, sorcerers have all this meta magic that they can use, and how does this interact? And yeah, I mean, so that it was definitely one of the hardest ones to design.
And it was, I think it played great. I think one thing that we didn't expect was the flag being planted, giving the additional turn. Because normally I wouldn't have gotten that till like level 19. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So those extra attacks I wouldn't get until I'm almost a god, pretty much.
Speaking of that, Sir Cousland, how do you feel over there?
So fighter is my main thing in these games. I love playing a fighter. And the problem that I have with a lot of fighter subclasses is, you know, I don't pick fighter because I want to use magic. And I feel like this class can kind of bring a lot of utility without leaning into magic. It's all very much inspiring words and that kind of thing. Like you had mentioned when we planted the flag, it radiates magic around. And, you know, that's one interpretation of it, but it's just supposed to be a morale thing by design. Like you plant the flag, you say charge, they get their temporary HP, you're just bolstering people. Yeah. And as a fighter, I don't like choices. I like nice and simple, and I feel like that class is easy. This is what you can do. You throw dice at people, you plant a flag.
That was clear.
Now, question, because of the fact that it is morale, as the DM balancing it on the other side, right? I think then the kobolds could have noticed what it was doing.
Yeah.
Right? And it makes it so it's a different person who would notice what that thing is doing.
Yeah, I mean,
right? Like mages who spend all their days in towers might never understand that this is something that's inspiring to the people on the battlefield, but soldiers, the grunt soldiers actually would be the ones to target a flag like that. Now that I think about it afterwards.
And I mean, even something as primitive as goblins understands, you know, that's the leader, do something about that situation.
Right. Yeah. Which I think is interesting. I think that may be like something I would call out to someone playing that class. Like that is the difference. It is not magical. It is instead the morale, and people who are soldiers would recognize it. And
one thing that didn't really come up about the class is that it doesn't use charisma as much as it seems like it should. And that's just because charisma doesn't offer anything to the fighter class. So early on we made a decision like we're just going to use strength as the modifier for this. Otherwise, you're kind of asking people to spread super thin to try out this one class.
Right.
Yeah. I think it also leans into like how people will use strength in exchange for intimidation sometimes. Like it is that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Which I think matches. It's somebody who's strong but by actions.
So
one thing I did. Oh, go ahead.
Well, just talking about the banner in particular. So it's interesting enough to bring up. The original design for that ability, the original idea was like a war drummer, right? Like the guy playing an instrument on a battlefield. And the original ability was something that you had to like constantly like you had to use your action like every turn to like play a drum, right? And it required concentration as a fighter. Right, so like we were trying to incorporate concentration as a mechanic for a martial class, and that didn't quite work out. But I do have like an idea for that for like a future thing maybe. But like I eventually want to put in concentration into like a class, like a martial class at some point.
So I like that's actually kind of goes into what I was thinking is honestly the luchador ability that you did the taunt. I honestly thought that would have went well with the other class, with the commander class. but more of like a stone fortress, or you know what I mean, type situation where he plants the flag, he calls everybody to him, basically based on that whole morale situation. But he those similar mechanics would apply at that point because he's taking the attacks, drawing everybody to him and the flag. It also doesn't allow the flag to be up as long, possibly, if everyone's gravitating to that command.
Now the trick is, Luchador is the subclass.
Oh, I know, that's an amazing
and that
thing.
banner comes from the prestige class, if I'm not mistaken.
So he could put them together.
Fighters the commander is a fighter subclass.
Okay, never mind.
Subclass. Okay.
Whew, all right, so we're good.
Just multi-class.
Okay,
Just
multi-class, right?
That'd be outrageous. It's this is the spot everyone comes to die. That would be great.
So I hear what you're saying on like the stone wall, get everyone into one spot. But as a DM, I know that if you get everyone into one spot, you're gonna have a bad time.
This is true.
It's rough. So I want to real quick touch on the blood mages because you all took them into different directions, and I want to see how they felt. We didn't do too much, blood magey stuff, but I want to see how you all felt about it as you were looking at your options for the game. And you also did have a fun subclass. I think the subclasses for both of you shown more than the blood mage thing today.
The subclass is very cool. Blood mage feels like it melds in really well with all the casters. You know what you're doing with it, right? Like after that combat, I would have immediately expended 4 of my 7 hit dice, took a whole bunch of damage, and gotten my 4th level back.
Yeah, no, I agree. Sandy, if I would have had to have used a high level spell, I mean, I would have had no problems, expending hit die and taking that damage just to get that spell slot back. I think that's a really neat feature. It seems like also, I mean, looking at it, the real neat feature would be like the blood garnets. Is that what they're called?
Yes.
I don't think we weren't at a high enough level to use those.
Yeah,
I thought those spells would be like a really, really cool feature to use.
Yeah, the blood garnets are your capstone. I believe it's 13th level. Yeah, I mean, so you have to be like really high level, and but yeah, it's like it's a whole thing for the blood mage, which kind of plays into what he was saying about like the world building, I guess, right? Because the intention was like the blood mage is like it's evil, right? It's the evil Conan wizard sacrificing the girl on the slab, right? Like it's very dark fan. I don't even know what we'd call that genre, but like it's very much like I'm gonna kill puppies because it gives me more power, right? Like it's like that kind of like archetype. So it's like, well, we have to have some kind of like sacrifice as one of their abilities, right? Because like for my games, the blood mages were enemies, right? Like the only blood mages that the group encountered were bad guys, right? Because they were like, because obviously they are bad guys.
But because of how you designed it, that's the capstone. Until that point, you only ever use yourself.
Sure.
So you do. Oh God, it's the 9th level.
You can hurt some other people with it.
Yeah.
But it's.
But
I think
you're.
It's until you get close to unlocking the whole of it that you realize, oh shit.
Well,
can you kill a person?
And you could choose as a character to never use that high level ability, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that you have to do with the class. And I think the testament to it is the fact that it melded so well into 2 very different stories, 2 very different characters, but empowered both of them to be their character, right? It felt like a backdrop that enhanced whatever kind of wizard you wanted, whatever kind of character you wanted to be, which tempting. Which and I like that about the blood mage because I could see Daron's character deciding to kill a person to get their brother back, right? And to right now not be there at all, like not that even maybe in their thought process, but and getting to that point, I could see that in his arc easily, right?
I view the blood mage the way that I view necromancers, in that it's innately implied they're evil. But you can be a good necromancer who never becomes a lich, right? Like our man up here was asking the ghosts his name instead of just being like, "You are my slave, go do things." So there is that kind of that gray area of like using dark magic for a good source without going full on supervillain.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed that the crypt domain didn't get to use kind of what I think is its most fun ability. And that is, once you get up to like 6th level or so, you get the ability for your, so your ghost can now possess corpses, including enemy corpses. So it's like, you kill a mind flayer or whatever. Well, now we have
I got a mind flayer pet.
So it's like reduced threat. It's like half hit points, lower AC. You can't use some of like you wouldn't be able to use like the mind blast or whatever. But you have like a pretty big like meat shield basically. Like if you get something big.
See, if this campaign continued, I would have had him use that on Worm Corpse if you all took a short rest.
Yeah. If my ghost hadn't have died, I would have used him on the worm.
Yeah.
I just sometimes you float through the ground, you don't know that there's traps there. That's just how it goes sometimes. But no, I'm definitely using that worm would have been awesome as well to watch it kind of turn and start killing everybody else.
Because the crypt domain, of course, obviously the idea is making a necromancer that actually feels fun to play, and really a lot of the abilities are just getting rid of the tedious like bookkeeping that you have to do if you're trying to play necromancer. Because it's like, okay, so like if you play necromancer by standard rules, it's like, okay, so you wake up and you immediately have to spend 3 spell slots to retain control over your 6 zombies or whatever. It's like, okay, so, and then it's like, okay, well, but then like the added problem of like, okay, well, we're going into town. Well, you can't bring your zombies into town, so you're gonna have to leave them out for the bears to eat. It becomes like it becomes a burden, right? To try to play with like having zombie minions.
I've been a necromancer for 3 months now. I think I'm just going to get a tower and stay there.
Yeah.
You're right.
And that's what happens to all the necromancers. They just end up going to a place and that's how you get liches. And that's how you get liches.
Well, we got to go into his tower and see what's in there, though.
Right.
And it's like, don't come in my tower. I need to get some monsters to block the front door. I don't like... now it's a dungeon. Now it's a dungeon.
If you remember, Kevin, I played the one necromancer and we were in that one dungeon where it was just fine. And I had like 40 something zombies and skeletons, and I was like, I'm never doing this again.
Well, see, that's why I don't have problems with necromancers running like that in my games, because I'm like, well, a one-tile
I made sure
hallway.
to do it real quick, but
So, any final remarks before we sign off? And then I can stop the recording and we can chill if we want to.
I'm sure I'm gonna think of something after we stop.
The book is totally free. Go get it right now.
The book is free. Yes, definitely go get it.
Yes, the book is free.
Because we didn't.
What is the best place to get the book? We'll do that.
Okay, so the homepage that I use it's just a Ko-fi site, or just a Ko-fi page, but that has kind of not only the download to the book, but also like the newest things, the updates and stuff that I'm doing. So stuff I've done recently. So I guess like as in like an unrelated plug or whatever. The latest thing I put out was a Call of Cthulhu adventure, and that's up now. But that's completely unrelated.
But do go get it.
Yeah. I mean, if you want, I don't know.
Did you not see how much fun we just had?
My job is
with this man's stuff.
Yes, go get it.
Exactly. In the discussion.
Let's see. As far as I guess like last thoughts to like sign out. We didn't see any in the in this session, but the monsters section, I think I'll like point that out, is everything in the monster section is something that I've used in my games as like a gimmick monster. So they're all, nothing in that book from the monster section is like, a reskinned anything. They all have some weird, unique mechanic that is like not found anywhere else, and it's something that your players will remember. So like Kevin here still likes to bring up 8 months later when I they were gonna go fight like a sea hag or whatever. It was underwater, so they got a whole bunch of water stuff, right? Water breathing, free action potion, yada yada yada. And I'm like, okay, so you guys are, you're in the water, you're fighting whatever. Lair action, the oxygen in the water gets sucked out, so you're still drowning.
Wow.
And all the fish died too.
He wasn't happy about that. That particular one isn't in the book. But
there's a couple of them in there, though. There's a couple of them in there that are kind of like, I don't want to spoil it. I want people to look at them, but some of them are kind of like not a jerk move, but some of them like there's. I'm just gonna say the little one.
Yeah.
The little one is a problem, but a lot of them are very well made for campaigns as well. Like, I actually pulled your modified Cobalt for this one, clearly, right? Because you added the swallow mechanic to a creature, which I like that ability because you have some different abilities that you can tack on to pre-existing monsters as well. And the swallow mechanic was one reskinned as like a net trap, which I liked a lot. But I will just say all the monsters are really fun, and they're good for, like, I wanted to put more of them in here. I so wanted to, but it's a one-shot, so I couldn't put a ton. But they enhance campaigns by a lot, and they make players think differently about how they're going to come up against this problem. And some of them will just catch them off guard, which is great. It's always good to feel like you don't know everything about a monster before you fight it.
So I like you said, you didn't want to give spoilers, and but I think
you're gonna spoil one.
One.
Go ahead.
So one of them, and I built an entire dungeon around this, and my players hated me for it. One of them is a monster that siphons player levels. So you loot. So so what I built was a dungeon that, like, every time you take so much damage, you have to make a save. If you fail, you lose a level. Right? So it was all about like mitigating damage, and then when you get to the boss, every level that you've lost makes the boss stronger. So it's like if you save all your passive, so it's very dangerous because if the players just they had like 3 paladins in the party and they were making saves constantly. So like if that happens, they get to the boss and he's a pushover. On the other side, if they keep failing, it becomes a death spiral where the saves become unpassable, and anytime it's like, if you have to make this save, you're going to fail, right? And it's like, so it's a very dangerous monster, but your players will never forget it.
No, they won't.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Now, you kill the monster, you can get your levels back, but you have to kill it. And it would just hoard, like, it could just hoard them forever.
Well, that's like a multi-campaign monster. Like, I could imagine one campaign getting all their levels siphoned, and then another campaign's group comes in.
Yeah.
It has to find it.
There's tons of flavor there about them, like, depending on what levels it ate, what abilities the monster could get, etc. Like, you can do a lot of very fun things with just... There was a wizard who tried this dungeon to solo it and lost, and now you have to go in there after it has eaten all the levels of a wizard.
Of that wizard.
Now, what does that mean? Or maybe it ate all the levels of the wizard and his barbarian companion.
Right.
What does that mean now? Right? Like, so the again, as a DM
That's
who loves to
amazing.
write things,
Yes.
it makes for very fun ideas for you to use and put
Which,
inside your game.
But
So,
you got to
I think-
remember though.
We should probably sign off, and then we can talk and everything. But I want to say thank you all very much again for joining me. It's GM Box Duct Tape. It's on your coffee. It's on your coffee page. It's Forever DM, right? They can just, if they search Forever DM, they should find you.
Let's check. If you just type in Forever GM, type in Forever GM products. I use products as like the way to like differentiate myself from anybody else using the thing. So Forever GM products is like that'll bring it up. That brings up my Drive Through RPG page. The Ko-fi link should just be kofi.com/Forever GM products.
Beautiful. All right, please check it out if you can. I as a GM. The GM Box Duct Tape was great for me, but it's targeted towards me as well. So I feel like I fit the target demographic, and I very much so loved writing this adventure and running it with you all. Again, I'm Apelles. I'm GM Apelles on everything. 4-Story Games online. We can just go around one more time. Everybody just give us your name, any handles you got, and then we'll sign off. Let's start with Daron.
Daron, go by Norad 08. I've been having a good time.
Sounds good. Sir Cousland.
Kevin, co-author on the Forever GM products. You'll be seeing me again probably.
Definitely. Ray.
Pandemonium Syndicate. Amazing time. Can't wait to test something else out and possibly work with you all on getting some new stuff made, hopefully.
Yeah, Zach.
Yeah, I'm Zack. Sometimes I'm also called Not Quite Proficient. Just wait till my book comes out. Ooh. No, I love these two above me.
Awesome. And again, thank you all very much for playing. Thank you all for watching. And then hopefully, if we do it again, we'll let you know. If not, this is still a great test run, and we appreciate you all being here. Thank you very much. You have a good night.